Here in Poland, people like to have their patches of green, and not only saying that we like having a garden or something like that at home, but also something that is called the działka. That is a parcel or plot that people usually have. If they do, they have them out of town. This one's mine, and I really like it. I really like the nature, like being here. Nature's authentic. We should be authentic. And authenticity is the topic of today's episode of MORMONOLOG and the series of my Mormon heresies. Stay tuned.
I'm not saying that we're not Christians. Of course we are. We live by the faith that was expressed by Peter the Apostle. You are the Messiah, the Son of the living God. And this is what we think of Jesus Christ. We do not follow the rule sola scriptura, only the scripture. By that we mean that there are more sources of faith and there are more grounds of Christian faith than just the Holy Bible. We also do have, and this is a very important thing, a completely different concept of God. Well, critics of Mormonism have been struggling actually to specify whether we are monotheists or polytheists, and there is also a term tritheism. Well, the truth is that none of these words actually in any way goes with the doctrine of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, because we have a different concept of what God means. And we also have to consider the fact that we do follow the Bible, but we have a completely different rendition of the Bible. It's called the inspired translation. I would call it an updated interpretation of the Bible. There are some verses of the Bible that we do not believe that they are to be canonized. We also do not have the Apocrypha. We do not recognize the Apocrypha as a scripture. We also do not recognize Song of Songs, Song of Solomon, the Shir HaShirim, as an inspired scripture. And there are many other differences. Does that make us less Christian? I do not really think so. But yes, it makes us different. And it's super cool. The second thing I have to mention here is the Orthodox Church. I will also one day devote an entire video just to say a few words on Mormonism and Christian Orthodoxy, but the two main ones that do stand out is, first of all, the belief in eternal marriage. That's one thing. And also something that in Greek Orthodox theology is called theosis or theose, and in Russian or Old Church Slavonic language is named обожение. That is literally exaltation to godhood. As Vladimir Lossky, a Russian theologian, once said, and this is exactly what's a part of the Orthodox Christianity's doctrine, is God has become human so that people would become gods. You might be wondering, what is the true origin of the doctrine of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints? Now listen to this. There are just a few similarities between our doctrine and the Protestant doctrines. There are a few more between our doctrine and the Catholic doctrine. And there is a horde of similarities between our doctrine and the doctrine of the Orthodox Christianity, the Christianity, the rendition of Christianity that Prophet Joseph Smith was never familiar with. The third thing that's worth acknowledging is the fact that we, Latter-day Saints, believe in restoration. The restoration of the fullness of the gospel. And now, By that, I mean that the Book of Mormon is a keystone of that gospel, just like the Old and the New Testament might be treated as the cornerstones of the gospel. It is the Book of Mormon that is actually its keystone. Many Christians live by the belief that what makes the Bible the source of doctrine and of faith is the fact that the Bible is a historical account. Well, maybe yes, maybe not. There is a problem here. If we treat a religious text as a report or a historical account, it immediately loses its spiritual significance. It does not really serve our faith when the consistency of the data given in the text, for example the Old or the New Testament, becomes the most important thing for us. This is exactly when we completely lose the message of the text that we thought was of divine origin. When read only as a historical account, the scriptures completely lose their spiritual character. Unintentionally, we start approaching a given scripture the way we would approach a telephone book or a washing machine manual. It is only by reading the sacred texts with an open mind and a childlike imagination when it becomes possible to grasp the divine message and, above all, we make it possible to understand the role of that holy text in our spiritual life. It is the open mind and this imagination that blaze the trail for reading the Book of Mormon in such a fashion that it would obtain the spiritual value. The idea that the Book of Mormon is the keystone of the Gospel means that its texts confirm a strong fact of spiritual significance, that Jesus of Nazareth is the Christ, the Son of living God, now and forever, for the peoples of both hemispheres of our planet, and that the peoples and cultures of all the corners of the world have always had, to some extent, the access to Christ and the access to the eternal Gospel. Our doctrine of inclusion should inspire us to reach out for Christ in all the world's cultures, in all their philosophies, and in the lives of all the individuals that ever lived, the individuals that live now and are yet to be born. As each human being is literally a child of God, with a purpose to exist. We might be wondering why God allowed so many philosophies of life to appear, so many religions. Well, before we jump into any conclusions, let's just say that we have our own earthly perspective, but God has got the eternal one. Let's reach out for this one, maybe. When speaking of the Book of Mormon, we have to consider one more very important element when it comes to the sources and the grounds of faith. The Book of Mormon confirms that there are more scriptures that are yet to be unearthed. These scriptures rest patiently for the moment they will see their daylight, for the dawn of the day when their message can be heard. And we might be wondering, why don't we have these scriptures and these revelations yet? Because we're not ready for them. And one more thing. The restoration, the idea of restoration, drops a spiritual bomb. And that's not a very Christian act, I would say. Actually, it means that we believe that the revelation isn't over yet. Not only do we wait for the New Testaments of Christ to be unearthed, but for New Testaments and new messages from the heavens to be revealed once we are ready for them. In my opinion, the essence of the ongoing revelation is to keep an open mind for a personal revelation, to keep an open mind for what God has to say to each one of us.
I love the nature. Nature's authentic. Really authentic. We've got a lot to learn from the nature. And my heresy for today let's not be too Christian. And by that, I mean, let's keep Mormonism weird to its extreme, but let's not make it scary. By weird, I mean, let's show its uniqueness. Let us show the uniqueness and the eternal message of the gospel that the church teaches, the message that we have in the restored priesthood and all the holy scriptures that we have now and that are yet to come. Be brave in doing that.